The grand viewing chamber of the diplomatic station hung in the black void of space like a jewel, suspended in endless darkness. Princess stood before the massive transparent wall, her alien beauty impossible to ignore. Her skin shimmered with colors that had no names in human language, shifting between deep purple and silver as she moved. Her eyes were large and luminous, reflecting the light of Earth below like two moons in a night sky. She wore robes of white silk that seemed to float around her without touching the ground, held aloft by technology that humans could never understand. Below her, the planet Earth spun in its eternal dance. The continents were visible, the oceans blue and peaceful. Looking down from so far above, the entire world seemed small. It looked fragile. It looked like something that could break if she wasn't careful. But she did not feel careful. She felt amused. Around her stood her court, a collection of the most important people in the empire. They wore robes of different colors, each color marking their position in society. Gold for warriors, silver for scholars, red for those who handled diplomacy. They stood at a respectful distance from their princess, watching her with eyes full of admiration and fear. In the empire, fear and love were not opposites. They were the same thing. Lord stepped forward. His robes were gold, marking him as the highest military commander in the station. His face was angular and sharp, and his voice was smooth like oil on water. He had served family for 200 years, though he looked no older than 30. "Your Highness," he said with a bow, "the human delegation has arrived. They are in the preparation chamber awaiting your audience." Turned from the window, a smile spread across her face. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who found something amusing but not important. "The humans," she said, letting the word roll off her tongue like she was tasting something unpleasant. "How delightful! Have they brought us gifts? I wonder what they think would impress a princess of the empire." The courtiers laughed. Their laughter was immediate and genuine, not because they thought what she said was funny, but because she had said it. In the empire, the ruler's thoughts were always the funniest things that could be said. "Prepare the audience chamber," commanded. "I want to look down at them while we speak. It will remind them of their place." 30 minutes later, Princess sat upon her throne. It was a massive structure of silver and crystal, designed to make anyone standing before it feel small. The humans had been brought into the room, and they stood in a line like prisoners awaiting judgment. There were 6 of them, dressed in their military uniforms. The uniforms were dark blue and covered with medals and badges. They looked like children playing dress-up with their parents' clothes. The first human stepped forward. His name was Commander Victor Hayes. He was tall for a human, with a face that had been cut from stone. His eyes were hard and gray, and there was a scar running down the right side of his face. He moved with the confidence of a soldier who had seen war. "Your Highness," he said, bowing from the waist, "we are honored by your presence. Earth welcomes the great empire and its representatives." Leaned forward on her throne. She let her eyes move across the group, examining them like a scientist examining specimens in a laboratory. When she spoke, her voice carried no warmth. "Honored you should be. The Empire has conquered 30 star systems. We have held dominion over countless worlds for over 2,000 years. We have technology that your kind cannot even imagine. And yet here I stand before you, showing you the courtesy of a personal visit. You are not honored, you are blessed. Do you understand the difference?" Victor Hayes did not flinch. "We understand the difference, Your Highness, and we are grateful for your kindness." Kindness? The word seemed strange on his tongue. Smiled again, that cold smile without warmth. She stood and descended from her throne. As she walked toward the humans, they instinctively stepped back. She was much shorter than Victor Hayes, but her presence made her seem larger. "Tell me," she said, circling around him like a predator inspecting prey. "What are your weapons? What is it that you use to protect this fragile planet of yours?" Victor Hayes straightened. "We have military forces equipped with advanced technology, Your Highness. We have." "I know what you have," interrupted, and she waved her hand dismissively. We have observed your weapons systems from orbit. They are crude, primitive, toys that a human child might play with. One of my warships could destroy your entire planetary defense network in less than an hour. Did you know that? One ship, not a battle fleet, not an army. One single vessel piloted by a crew of 200 could reduce your cities to ash. The other humans in the room began to show signs of anger. One of them, a captain named Lisa with sharp features and intense dark eyes, stepped forward. Your Highness, we are a peaceful people seeking alliance, not. I did not give you permission to speak, said, her voice turning cold as ice. You will remain silent unless spoken to directly. Is that understood? Lisa's jaw clenched, but she bowed and stepped back. Victor Hayes put his hand on her shoulder, a silent warning to stay calm. Returned to her throne, she settled into it like she was sinking into clouds. When she spoke again, her voice was almost bored. I have made a decision. I will visit your Earth, personally. This is a great honor for your people. The Princess of the Empire will walk upon your surface and see what you are. You should prepare your best cities, your finest art, your greatest achievements. Show me what you think is impressive. I promise I will try not to laugh. She laughed then, and the sound echoed through the chamber like breaking glass. The courtiers behind her joined in, their laughter filling the room. Victor Hayes did not move. He stood straight, his face showing nothing. But inside him something was taking root. Not fear, not anger exactly, but an understanding that something was coming, something that would change everything. The humans were dismissed, leaving the chamber in silence. As they walked toward the exit, called out one final time. Commander Hayes, she said, and he turned. Tell your people that they should be grateful for my interest. Gratitude is the only emotion a fragile creature like yourself should be capable of feeling. Victor Hayes left without responding. Behind him, the great doors of the chamber closed. Settled back into her throne and looked toward the window where Earth still hung in space. She could not have known that the words she had spoken were already setting in motion events that would force her to learn a lesson no one in the Empire had ever needed to teach her before, what it meant to be afraid. The capital city of Earth spread out before Princess like a map of primitive achievement. Buildings reached toward the sky, their steel frames glinting in the sunlight. Roads cut through the landscape in straight lines, carrying humans in vehicles from place to place. Parks held trees and grass, scattered throughout the urban landscape like they had scattered their own gardens. But too, it all looked like the work of children stacking blocks. She had arrived an hour ago, descending from her shuttle with minimal security. 5 soldiers accompanied her, each one standing 8 feet tall with skin the color of burnished bronze. They wore armor that could resist weapons fire from distances that would seem magical to human minds. They moved with practiced efficiency, forming a protective circle around their princess. But did not want protection. She wanted to be seen. She wanted to walk among these fragile creatures and let them witness her superiority firsthand. She had forbidden the military from posting snipers on the nearby buildings. She had rejected the recommendation to have medical chambers standing by. She had laughed at the suggestion of maintaining an escape route. Nothing here could hurt her. Nothing in this city, on this planet, could possibly pose a threat to someone of her standing. The public square had been prepared according to her specifications. A stage had been built, raising her above the crowd that had gathered. Thousands of humans pressed forward, trying to get a glimpse of the alien princess. They were quiet, nervous. Many of them were afraid, could see the fear in their eyes and in the way they held their bodies. It pleased her. A man named General Robert Jackson stood near the stage. He was head of Earth's military forces and wore a uniform covered with even more medals than Victor Hayes had worn. He approached with visible caution. Your Highness, we have prepared a demonstration of our military capabilities. Would you like to observe? Glanced at him briefly. If you wish, though I suspect it will be as dull as everything else your people have shown me. What followed was the finest display of human military power that Earth could manage. Aircraft flew in formation overhead, moving at speeds that represented the cutting edge of human technology. Soldiers performed combat demonstrations, showing hand-to-hand fighting techniques that had been refined over centuries of warfare. Artillery pieces fired, their explosions sending columns of smoke into the sky. Tanks moved across the ground with the power of moving fortresses. Watched it all with the expression of someone watching children play with toys. When it was finished, she actually yawned. She turned to General Jackson and smiled that cold smile. "Is that all?" she asked. "Your military is even weaker than I expected. My personal guard could defeat every soldier on your planet without breaking a sweat. We would not even need to deploy a warship. Just these 5 individuals standing beside me could conquer your entire world in an afternoon." The soldiers on the stage shifted uncomfortably. In the crowd, humans exchanged glances. Some showed anger, some showed despair, some showed something else. A kind of grim resignation, as if they had always known this would be how things went with superior beings. Unknown to the princess, in a building overlooking the square, a man named Aaron Cross was setting up a camera. He was broadcasting live to the internet, reaching thousands of people who could not fit into the square. Aaron was the leader of a group called the Earth First Movement. They were extremists, people who believed that humanity's only hope lay in violent resistance against any aliens who came to their world. Aaron had spent months planning this. He had learned about's visit through contacts he had in the government. He had watched her speeches, studied her arrogance, documented every moment she had mocked human capability. And he had come to a conclusion that felt very clear and very right to him. The only way to prove that humanity could not be conquered was to show the aliens that even the most powerful among them could die. On the floor below Aaron's position, in a small room with a perfect view of the square, was assembling a rifle. Her hands moved with the precision of someone who had done this thousands of times before. She was a retired Army sniper, the best shooter the United States military had ever trained. She could place a bullet in a target smaller than a coin from over 1,000 meters away. But as she worked, doubt gnawed at her mind. Had taken this job because Aaron had convinced her that it was necessary. He had shown her clips of speeches. He had told her that the princess planned to enslave humanity, that she viewed them all as animals fit only for slaughter. He had framed it as self-defense. He had made it sound righteous. But now, looking down at the actual person rather than at propaganda was not certain anymore, was just standing there making speeches. That was not an invasion. That was not a threat to Earth's survival. That was politics. That was diplomacy. That was the kind of thing humans did to each other all the time. She had picked up the phone and called Aaron. "I don't know if I can do this," she had said. "She's not attacking anyone, she's just talking." Aaron's voice had been sharp on the other end. "She's not attacking anyone yet, but she will. This is our one chance to prove that humans are not weak. This is our one chance to show the galaxy that we will not be conquered. If you don't do this, history will judge you as a coward." Those words had stuck with. History will judge you as a coward. She had spent her entire career proving she was not a coward. She had killed in war. She had taken lives to protect her country. Could she really back down now? Could she look her fellow humans in the eye knowing she had a chance to strike a blow against alien dominance and had chosen not to? So she had agreed. And now she was here, preparing her rifle, preparing to fire a shot that would either free humanity or condemn it. Meanwhile, in the square, Victor Hayes was standing at the edge of the crowd with Lisa beside him. They were watching give another speech about superiority. Lisa's hands were clenched into fists. "This is unbearable," she said. "How can she speak to us like this?" Victor's eyes were scanning the buildings surrounding the square. His military instincts were tingling with alarm. Something felt wrong. The crowd was too quiet. The tension in the air was too thick. And now, looking at the buildings, he thought he saw something. A reflection. A glint of light from a high window that should not have been there. He grabbed Lisa's arm. "Something is about to happen," he said quietly. "We need to get clear of here." But he was already too late. In the building above, put her eye to the scope. She could see clearly, standing on the stage, looking down at the humans below her with contempt written across her face. Aaron's voice came through the earpiece in his ear. "Do it," he said simply. "Do it now." His finger tightened on the trigger. She was a sniper. She was trained. She was ready. And in that moment she pulled the trigger and changed everything. The bullet left his rifle with a velocity of 800 meters per second. It was a single piece of metal, less than an inch long, carrying inside it the full weight of human desperation and determination. The air in front of it compressed and bent, creating a shock wave that followed behind like an invisible ghost. Princess was speaking about human weakness. She was describing, with great satisfaction, how easily the Empire could destroy anything humanity had built. Her voice carried across the square, amplified by speakers that made sure everyone could hear every word of mockery. The bullet traveled 1,200 meters in approximately 1.5 seconds. For that entire journey through the air, had no idea it was coming. Her security was not watching for threats. How could they? No human weapon could possibly hurt someone of her status. The 5 soldiers stood at the edges of the stage, watching the crowd rather than the rooftops. It was a fatal mistake. The bullet struck in the upper right shoulder, just below her collarbone. It punched through her white ceremonial robes like a knife through silk. It entered her body and tore through tissue with terrible efficiency. The sniper rifle had been chambered with ammunition designed to penetrate armor. Its robes offered no resistance whatsoever. She screamed. It was not a dignified sound. It was raw and primal, a sound of pure pain and shock. Her hand flew to her shoulder and came away covered in blood. Bright blue blood, the color of the ocean on a sunny day. The blood spilled down her white robes, spreading like ink in water. The chaos that followed was instantaneous and total. The crowd erupted in screams. People began running in all directions, trying to escape. The 5 soldiers moved with military precision, instantly forming a protective barrier around their wounded princess. They drew weapons that looked like nothing human technology had ever produced, devices that crackled with energy and emitted light that burned the air itself. Fell to her knees. The pain was extraordinary, more intense than anything she had ever experienced. In her entire life, she had never been injured. She had never felt pain beyond a minor headache or the discomfort of overeating. She was the princess of the most powerful empire in the galaxy. She was supposed to be invulnerable. But she was not invulnerable. A human had proven that. A creature she had mocked as fragile had reached out across 1,000 meters of space and drawn her blood. One of the soldiers, a woman named who had protected since childhood, knelt beside her princess. "Your Highness, we must move. We must get you to the medical chamber." His eyes were wide, filled with shock and pain and something else. Something that looked like fear. Her voice came out in a whisper. "How is this possible? How did they? How could they?" But there was no time for answers. The soldiers lifted her carefully and began moving toward the shuttle that had been left on the edge of the square. As they carried her, caught a glimpse of the crowd, and what she saw there would haunt her for the rest of her life. The humans were not panicked. Not all of them. Many were running and screaming, yes, but others were standing still, watching with an expression that could only interpret as satisfaction. They were smiling. One woman had tears running down her face, but she was also smiling. A young man was actually cheering, his fist raised to the sky in triumph. They were glad. They were happy that she had been shot. These primitive creatures who she had mocked and dismissed were celebrating because she had been proven to be mortal. In the building above the square was already moving. She had no time to celebrate. She had fired her shot, made her statement, and now she needed to escape. This was not part of Aaron Cross's plan, which was why she had always known this was stupid from the beginning. Aaron had wanted to recruit someone to fire the shot, but he had not wanted to spend time planning an escape. To him, the shot itself was all that mattered. The statement. The proof that humanity could strike back. But had spent her entire military career understanding that victory meant nothing if you died in the attempt. So she had planned her own escape route. using the knowledge of the city she had built up over years of studying it. She moved quickly through the building, down a stairwell, and out into an alley. People were running everywhere now, emergency sirens were sounding, and the city was erupting into chaos. It took the police 20 minutes to find her. She was cornered in a parking garage with nowhere left to run. There were 12 armed officers, all pointing weapons at her. She had no desire to hurt them. These were her own people, so she set down her rifle, slowly raised her hands, and waited to be arrested. Meanwhile, Victor Hayes was fighting his way through the crowd toward the square where it had been taken. Lisa was right behind him, her face grim and determined. When they reached the stage, the shuttle was already rising into the sky, carrying the wounded princess back to the safety of the orbital station. Victor looked at the blood on the stage. Bright blue blood, alien and otherworldly. He understood immediately what had happened. Someone had shot the princess. Someone human, someone from Earth, and that someone had just started a war. He pulled out his communication device and called the government crisis center. His voice was steady, but inside he was burning with the knowledge of what was coming. "This is Commander Victor Hayes. We have a critical situation. There has been an assassination attempt against the princess. She has been wounded and is returning to her vessel. I recommend we move to DEFCON 1. The will want revenge." The next hours were a blur of activity. Security forces moved through the city, searching for the shooter. Military vessels were placed on alert. Government officials gathered in emergency meetings to discuss what had happened and how to respond. And above the Earth, in the darkness of space, the Empire was receiving a message about how one of their most important people had been struck down by a human. Emperor, father, and ruler of the most powerful empire in the known galaxy received the news in his throne room. When he heard that his daughter had been wounded by a human weapon, something inside him went cold, not with fear, with rage. He stood up from his throne, his voice like thunder. "Prepare the attack fleet," he commanded. "We will reduce that world to ashes. Every human on that planet will pay for what they have done to the princess." But in the medical chamber of the station, Princess was beginning to think differently. As the pain of her wound was treated, as she lay still and conscious, a new understanding was beginning to form in her mind. And that understanding was terrifying in its own way. The healing chamber glowed with soft blue light, lay on a medical platform while doctors worked around her. The wound in her shoulder had already begun to mend. The advanced technology of the Empire could repair almost any physical damage in a matter of hours. The bullet had been removed. The bleeding had been stopped. The tissue would regenerate. In 3 days, there would be barely a scar. But the princess was not thinking about her physical wound. She was thinking about what had happened in the square. She was thinking about the human faces she had seen, about the satisfaction in their eyes when she fell. She was thinking about how a creature she had considered primitive had managed to reach across the distance and prove her mortal. Lord entered the chamber. His bronze skin seemed darker than usual and his eyes were burning with anger. "Your Highness, your father has called. He is very upset. He has ordered the assembly of the attack fleet. He intends to destroy the entire human civilization." His eyes opened. She tried to sit up, but pain stopped her. "How many ships?" she asked. 200 combat vessels, 30,000 troops. It will be sufficient to wipe every human settlement from the face of the planet. Humans will become extinct. This we promise you." Closed her eyes. She knew her father well. She knew that when Emperor made a promise, he followed through. 200 ships would be more than enough to destroy Earth's military capabilities, and then systematically destroy every major city, every settlement, every place where humans gathered. The entire species would be erased from existence in a matter of weeks. And she could stop it if she wanted to. One word from her, and her father would call back the fleet. One statement saying that she did not want the humans destroyed, and it would be done. She was the princess. Her word carried weight in the Empire. But did she want to stop it? Did she not want revenge for what had been done to her? The question troubled her, and she did not have an answer. 2 hours later, the soldiers brought Victor Hayes to see her. He came into the medical chamber with his hands bound in energy cuffs that kept him from moving his arms. 2 soldiers escorted him, their weapons ready. When he saw, he bowed from the waist, as much as his bound arms would allow. "Your Highness," he said, "I have come to apologize for what one of my people has done. I accept full responsibility. I should have provided better security. I should have." Silence said, but her voice was not cold anymore. It was confused. "Tell me something, Commander. How could this happen? How could a creature as fragile as a human manage to hurt someone of my power?" Victor Hayes straightened. He was a soldier, trained to speak truth even when the truth was dangerous. "Because one human was willing to give up their life to do it, Your Highness. Because we fear you. Because some of us believe that surrender means slavery or death. When creatures are afraid enough, when they have nothing left to lose, they become capable of extraordinary things." "You speak as if you understand why she did this," said. "I don't," Victor said. "The person who shot you was acting on her own without authorization from the Earth government. We are devastated by this act, but I understand the desperation that might drive someone to attempt such a thing. You came here and told us we were weak. You mocked our capabilities. You made clear that we were beneath you. Some humans respond to that kind of treatment by resisting, no matter the cost." Was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was very small. "Would you have shot me, Commander? If you had the chance, would you have attempted to take my life?" Victor considered the question carefully. This was a moment where a lie might save his life. Humans were good at lying, at saying what people wanted to hear. But he was a soldier, and soldiers understood that some moments required honesty above all else. "No, Your Highness," he said. "I would not have. I would have found another way. I would have tried to protect my people through strength and through diplomacy. But then again, I am not the person who decided to take that shot. That person made a different choice." "Why?" asked. "Why would someone choose to attack me? Do they not understand what my people can do to them? Do they not realize we can destroy their entire world?" "They do realize it," Victor said. "But some humans would rather die fighting than live enslaved. And your words, Your Highness, made it sound like slavery was inevitable. You made it sound like we had no choice but to surrender. Some humans cannot accept that. Some humans must try to fight, even if fighting seems hopeless." For the first time since the bullet had struck her, began to understand something beyond her own pain and anger. She began to understand that she had done something. She had planted a seed of desperation in human hearts through her mockery and contempt. And that seed had grown into action. That seed had driven to pick up a rifle and attempt what she had probably believed was a suicide mission. But it was not a suicide mission that had succeeded. It was an assassination attempt that had wounded rather than killed, and the sniper had been captured. The human government would undoubtedly execute her. The humans had already lost. They had already paid the price for their defiance. So why did not feel victorious? She looked at Victor Hayes standing before her, hands bound, knowing that his entire species was about to be erased from existence. She expected to see fear in his face. She expected to see despair. But what she saw was something else entirely. She saw pride. She saw a human being standing before the representative of a power that could destroy everything he loved, and he was still standing straight. He was still speaking truth. He was not cowering. "Leave me," said to her guards, "and unbind the commander's hands." "Your Highness," said stepping forward, "is that wise? This is a human. He cannot be trusted." "I said leave me," repeated, and there was no room for argument in her voice. When the soldiers had gone and Victor's hands were free, spoke again. "My father is preparing to destroy your entire world. In 3 days the attack fleet will arrive. Your species will be extinct. Before that happens, I want to know something. I want to know what it is that makes a human willing to die, willing to sacrifice everything for something as abstract as freedom. My people have never needed such things. We are superior. We do not need to resist. We do not need to fight. We simply are better, and that is enough. Victor sat down slowly, not out of disrespect, but because his legs were suddenly weak. Your Highness, may I speak freely? Yes, said. Your strength has made you believe that strength is all that matters, but humans have learned something different. We have learned that what matters is not what we can do, but why we do it. A human will sacrifice their life for someone they love. A human will die for an idea. A human will face impossible odds because not fighting would be worse than fighting. These things make us weak in some ways. They make us vulnerable, but they also make us strong in ways your people may have forgotten. Closed her eyes. She thought about the moment the bullet struck her. She thought about the pain and the shock. She thought about realizing she was mortal. And she thought about the faces in the crowd, smiling because she had been struck down. She understood now what that smile meant. It was not triumph. It was dignity. It was the defiant smile of a creature asserting that they would not accept a position of inferiority, that they would not accept being mocked and dismissed, that they would stand up even knowing it was hopeless. That was what human courage looked like. Emperor sat upon his throne in the great hall of the empire. Before him stood his finest military commanders, arrayed in their armor of war. The attack fleet was assembled and ready. In 2 days they would jump to the Earth system and begin the process of extinction. Every human on that planet would die. Every city would burn. Every trace of their civilization would be erased. This was the will of the Emperor. But then a message came through. It was from Princess. She requested that her father meet with her before the attack fleet launched. The Emperor was surprised by this. His daughter was lying in the medical chamber, recovering from her wound. The last he had heard, she was resting, but if she wished to see him, he would grant that request. A father's duty was to listen to his children, even when they made foolish demands. When the Emperor entered the medical chamber, he found his daughter sitting up on the bed. Her wound was nearly healed, the power of technology already repairing what human violence had torn. His eyes were clear and serious. Father, she said, I have something important to tell you. Emperor sat across from his daughter. He was old by human standards, though he lived far longer than humans could imagine. His face was sharp and angular, and his eyes were the color of steel. I trust you are recovering well, he said. I am, replied. Father, I came to Earth believing I was superior to the humans. I came here to show them their weakness, and they proved me right. They are weak. Their technology is primitive. Their bodies are fragile. Everything I said about them was true. The Emperor nodded. He did not speak, waiting for his daughter to continue. But I was also wrong, said. A human shot me because she was desperate, because she believed that her people faced extinction if she did not act. She knew she would die. She knew the act was probably hopeless. But she did it anyway because some humans value dignity more than life. Some humans value freedom more than safety. The Emperor frowned. And what does this have to do with the attack fleet? Everything, said. I want you to recall the fleet. I want you to cancel the attack. For a moment, the Emperor did not speak. When he did, his voice was very quiet. You are asking me to show mercy to the creatures that tried to kill you. You are asking me to let them survive when they have proven themselves dangerous. Yes, said simply. And why should I do this? Took a breath. Because destroying them would prove that I was right to mock them. It would prove that strength is all that matters. But I do not want to be right in that way, Father. I want to be better than that. I want to lead an empire that has the strength to show mercy. I want the humans to understand that they can survive, not because we are weak, but because we choose not to destroy them. Emperor stood up. He walked to the window and looked out at Earth below. For a long moment he was silent. You were always the most confident of my children, he said, the most certain of your own superiority, and now you are asking me to overturn my judgment because one human managed to hurt you. How am I supposed to understand that change? Because I understand now that being strong is not the same as being right, said. A human taught me that. A human who faced my entire empire and chose to resist anyway. That is a kind of strength we have not seen in a very long time. The emperor turned back to his daughter. After a long moment he inclined his head. Very well, I will recall the fleet. But hear me, daughter. If this decision proves wrong, if the humans betray us or prove dangerous, the consequences will fall on you. You will be responsible for their actions from this moment forward. I understand, said. The attack fleet was recalled. Messages were sent throughout the empire explaining the decision. Many people were angry. They wanted revenge. They wanted to see the humans destroyed. But the emperor's word was absolute and his decision was followed. Then came the matter of. She sat in a prison on Earth awaiting execution. She expected to die. She had accepted that her death was the price of her action, but instead sent a message. She wanted to meet with. She wanted to face the woman who had shot her. The humans were confused by this request, but they granted it. They brought to a secure chamber where was waiting. Was a lean woman with hard eyes and the bearing of a soldier. She had killed in war, but she had never killed for politics before, never killed because of desperation. She stood in front of the princess, expecting condemnation, but spoke to her with something that sounded almost like respect. You knew you would probably die, said. You knew that what you were attempting was likely to fail, and yet you did it anyway. Why? Took a moment to answer. Because someone needed to show that humans would not be conquered. Someone needed to prove that even your people could be hurt. I thought maybe if I did that, humans would understand that we are not weak, that we have the capacity to fight back. You succeeded, said. You proved that, and now I am offering you something. You can be executed, which is what the law demands, or you can work with me. You can help me build an alliance between our peoples. You can help me understand humanity the way you have helped me understand it. Looked at the alien princess for a long moment. Why would you offer this? Why would you not want me dead? Because showing mercy is stronger than showing revenge, said. Because an empire that can afford to be merciful is truly superior to one that can only be cruel. And because I want the humans to know that one of their own changed everything. That one act of defiance led to understanding instead of destruction. That is a powerful message. 3 months later, Princess stood in a public square on Earth once again. But this time, she was not standing above the crowd. She was standing beside. They stood together as representatives of a new understanding. Addressed the crowd in a voice that could be heard throughout the square. I came to your world believing I was superior to you. I came here to show you weakness, but I was blind. I could not see the strength that exists in human courage, in human sacrifice, in human dignity. One human taught me this lesson. One human was willing to die to show me that my understanding was wrong. And because of that lesson, everything has changed. She gestured to the beside her. The attack that was planned has been called off. The Empire recognizes humanity not as inferior creatures to be conquered, but as beings worthy of respect. We will be allies now. We will work together to build something new. The crowd was silent at first. Then slowly people began to applaud. They understood what had happened. A human had tried to kill an alien princess. The alien princess had nearly been destroyed in revenge, but instead she had learned. She had changed, and she had chosen mercy. Looked at and nodded. There had been a cost to her actions. One human had died in the attempt to capture her. Several others had been injured, but something had been created from that violence, something that might not have existed otherwise. Understanding, a bridge between two worlds. Looked back at. In that moment, she was no longer thinking of herself as superior. She was thinking of as an equal. She was thinking of humans as a people capable of extraordinary things. She was thinking about how a single bullet had changed everything. And she was thinking that perhaps her species had been wrong about many things. Perhaps strength was not measured in weapons or power. Perhaps strength was measured in the ability to change, to learn, and to choose compassion even when compassion was not expected. The sun set over the city, and humans stood together in the square. For the first time, they were not looking at each other with fear or contempt. They were looking at each other with curiosity and the first fragile beginnings of respect. The future was uncertain. Challenges would come. Old prejudices would not disappear overnight. But in that moment, standing in that square, something new had been born. Something that would ripple outward through both civilizations. Something that had started with a single shot, a moment of courage, and an alien princess who had been willing to learn.